Welcome back to Beyond the Boardroom, Her Story. Today we're going to dive into something that is so close to home for so many of us, especially as wives of entrepreneurs. So I feel like we can totally be the backbone of our successes, but sometimes it's all the focus on them, where today I want to bring it full circle of why it's super important for you to lean into your self-development and your growth and your community and your support, as well as be a support for our husbands. The truth is, supporting his goals and pursuing your dreams aren't opposites. They're actually super complementary for each other. And so I'm going to talk about today why it's a game changer for both of you, and to share ways so that you can find that balance so that your relationship thrives and you're able to build the empire together. This first section, I want to specifically talk about the science of spousal support. I read through a lot of different reviews and research that talks specifically about how important it is that you have your spouse's support and that your spouse has your support in success in specifically business. So this Harvard Business Review I want to talk about. The studies show that individuals with supportive spouses are more likely to achieve ambitious career goals. So why is that? Obviously, because emotional backing reduces that stress and builds confidence. Here's a quote from that review. When employees feel supported by their spouses, they can better focus on their work and innovate. So this is a plug for the idea that if you have employees in your organization, that you can think about their spouses and what it would take to have their support. So not only because that's a good thing to do to build out these individual families, but as well as to build progress and performance at work. This Notre Dame research on specifically success and support linked, Brittany Solomon's research revealed that men with conscientious, supportive wives are 50% more likely to succeed in their careers. So I actually see this in the interviews that I do in this podcast, where I look at these individual super successful men and male entrepreneurs, and they're killing it, right? And then I meet their wives and I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder they're killing it. They have an amazing support, an amazing woman at home, that they are equals. And so I love that. This quote specifically from this Notre Dame research says, a wife who offers emotional and logistical support creates an environment where her husband can thrive professionally. So it's humbling to realize that we as wives have such a profound impact on our husbands when they are successful. It's not just, oh, you can do this. It's like giving them critiques or giving them suggestions or giving a listening ear. I think so often we don't realize how important that is. So I want you to take a little self-evaluation. Are you that supportive wife? Are you showing up the way that you want to and that helps him feel supported and motivated? Because when he wins, you win. And when you win, he wins. And so that's the main thing I want to focus on today. I think of the podcast episode. You guys should totally go back and listen to it if you haven't. This last one is with Chelsea and Casey Bach. And Casey was giving her all this praise. He was just like, she's an amazing mother, an amazing wife, talking about all her successes and wins in those roles. And then it was so interesting because she, after he was finished, she was like, yes, thank you. But also it's because I have always felt supported and seen by you so that I could feel successful in this role and that I could provide success and support for you. And it's so cool to see that they've always had each other's back. So again, when you're thinking of your situation, if you're feeling like, oh, I could really improve in supporting my husband in his role, and you're also feeling like, oh, maybe he could support me in my role and the part that we play together, we're going to go through some different scenarios later on in the podcast that will really help both of those successful relationships be supported. I wanted to give a plug for the Live Big Collective. That is the company that I run and lead. And the whole reason that we have adjusted to serve wives of entrepreneurs is because I see this vision for successful Utah companies that it's like, okay, there's all this support for the entrepreneur, and I am an entrepreneur. So I see that personally for myself. I've been involved in masterminds and courses and coaching and events and retreats and all of these things. There's a lot of support for the male entrepreneur or the female entrepreneur. But what about the spouses? What about these supportive spouses that are encouraging and there for the hard times, but don't get this praise or recognition or support in the same way? And so I started the Live Big Collective, where we are specifically gathering Utah women who are married to these successful entrepreneurs. Because just like your husband has his masterminds and conferences and coaching, we believe that you need all of that too, both in your role as a mother and a wife and as an individual yourself. So as this next section, I want to just hone in on supporting him while supporting yourself. So how do we balance this like cheerleader support to your spouse while pursuing your own dreams? And so I'm going to go through the lens of creating this harmony within your home and within yourself. So self-growth totally benefits the relationship. I think of my own relationship with Shane. And I think the first time we like really got into self-development, I read the book Miracle Morning, which I love. And if you haven't listened to the Live Big Morning and Principles to Live By episode, it's the very first episode. I talk all about that book. And I remember I read it and I was all in on this morning routine. And I could feel myself starting to really grow. And then Shane noticed and he was like, oh, I want to do that too. So we started doing that together. And I think so when Shane is doing his morning routine and I'm doing my morning routine, we're not really interacting that much. We're doing our own thing. Sometimes we're even in different parts of the house, but there's something about both of us working on ourselves emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. We're taken care of, right? And as much as I love and adore my husband and want him to need me and I want to need him, we're both very independent people, but there's this interdependence that we've worked on because we're each evolving and growing in our own ways. And so that way it's almost like 1 + 1 is 3. It becomes this symbiotic relationship. And so if you're looking at your relationship and you kind of see this balance or it's not so balanced, maybe one of you is working more on your self-development or the other way around, it can feel more tenuous than productive and symbiotic. And so how we kind of reignite this is maybe to have some conversations. So these are some of these tangible steps that you can use to grow together. So the first one is build systems of support. So what that looks like for me personally is I'm fortunate to have Shane's support. He's been extremely supportive our whole marriage in all the different businesses I've had and different successes and failures and all of the things. He's been there. But I know that that's not the case for every woman. So I want to be aware of that. So the suggestion that I have is you can only control yourself, right? So take a quick gut check to really think through, how are you supporting your spouse? How's that looking like? And maybe you need to create a weekly meeting to say, hey, one of my goals this year is to support you more in your career and personal ambitions. And so I'm going to I'd love to ask you some questions about that, or I'd love to have a meeting every week so that I can figure out what that looks like. And guess what? When someone feels super supportive in a normal, healthy relationship, when someone feels really supported and cared for and respected, you're probably going to receive the same. Again, in a normal, healthy relationship, that's typically how it goes. So just by having a conversation with your spouse and doing it today and just saying like, hey, what would support for you look like? I'd like to be more successful as a couple and I want to support you in that role. What would that look like? And then in the same breath, if you feel comfortable, I think you need to be clear and and direct on what you would like support to look like back. And it's not a tit for tat thing. You're really trying to surround yourself with the positivity of how can I give more in this relationship than take, but then also how can you still receive the support that you need. So maybe that is from your husband, and maybe it is from having those conversations, but also maybe, shameless plug, it's going to be from something like the Live Big Collective, where you're feeling supported by friendships and self-development and coaching and events and something to look forward to. So that way, if your husband doesn't show up the way that you want him to, you have that support and you've found it for yourself. But also, I really think he'll be able to support you in some of these roles that you're playing, because he's feeling fulfilled and supported and honored and respected in that way. And again, you're able to do that for each other and become this 1 + 1 is 3 symbiotic relationship. Okay, the next one is, you guys know I'm super passionate about encouraging date nights. I want to just highlight how regular date nights have literally changed mine and Shane's relationship. I feel like at the beginning, we were, you're so in love and all these things and have stars in your eyes for each other, all this stuff. But then real life happens, or kids happen, or whatever. And so if you're not super happy with your relationship right now, I think that is a super great way to boost it. And let's say you already are pretty happy in your relationship, it's still an awesome way to boost it and to build that connection with each other, where you can both talk about what you're excited about with work or life or the kids or your own ambitions. There's a lot of things that come from just having that personal time together and setting aside those weekly date nights. The third one is to celebrate each other's wins. So oftentimes we think that, oh, I'll just have this private win, which is great. If you can feel totally fulfilled in that, like, go for it. That's perfect. But if there's times when you're feeling like, I would like someone else to celebrate me, talk to your husband about that. Say, hey, this is what it would look like for me to feel celebrated and supported and encouraged. And I'm super eager for you to do that for me. And what does that look like? We can't just expect someone, especially our spouse, to read our mind. We need to have the confidence to just say, hey, this is what I would really appreciate in our relationship. The fourth one is finding your tribe. So I want to emphasize this importance of having a support system outside of the marriage. So let's say you feel super awesome with your marriage and your support of your spouse. I think there's still something about, I look at like the hype women in my life that are so encouraging and get what it's like to be married to an entrepreneur. They get what it's like to live an entrepreneurial life. They get what it's like to be a mother. There's some things that our husbands can't relate to. So this is one of my favorite analogies. I heard it several years ago, where there's this idea of a set of keys. And I've talked about this before a lot in the Live Big Collective, but there's this set of keys and you have these different relationships, if you think of it from a key standpoint. So one key might be a friend that just makes you like laugh till you pee your pants. Then you have one friend that is like your therapy friend that you're just like, man, I should start paying you because you just support me in so many different ways than I could even express. Then another one might be someone who makes you feel like a kid again. You're just having so much fun together. Then there's relationships where maybe you have really deep conversations. It's a philosophical relationship, right? So there's all these different relationships in our life where we have different friendships that pull different sides of us out. And I think sometimes we think our husband has to be all of those keys, and vice versa. Maybe we feel like we have to be all of those keys for our husband. But I want you to think of maybe some of these keys that you're like, oh, I wish I had someone that I could just talk about self-development books with, or I wish I had someone that could coach me on this, or I wish I had a friendship that is a mom friend that knows what it's like to be in an entrepreneurial life. Those are the keys that we provide in the Live Big Collective, where you're truly able to tap into different sides of yourself so that you can feel fulfilled. And that way it keeps the pressure off of your husband of being all the things for us and vice versa. You don't have to be all the things for him. In closing, what I want to talk about here is this idea that at the end of the day, a thriving marriage is about partnership. And so that's what I want to bring home, and everything that I'm talking about today is that by supporting our husbands in their entrepreneurial journey and investing in our own dreams, we create a beautiful balance where both of us can succeed. Remember that when you grow, he grows, and when he grows, you grow. And so if you're not as happy with the success of your empire that you've been building together as a couple, maybe instead of focusing on what he is or isn't doing, maybe you could focus on you and what you are or aren't doing. I'm not saying go out and start a new business unless you want to, but maybe you could focus on your support for him. Maybe you could focus on your self-development and your confidence and growing in the way that makes it so everyone grows together. Lastly, I just want to take a moment to encourage you to take some action on this. So in the Live Big Collective, we talk all about information is not transformation. So you can't just listen to all this information, all these different studies and ideas and all of the things, but not take action to actually get different results. For things to change, you must change. So if you want things to improve, you need to take action on at least one thing that's going to move the needle. So that's my challenge for you today, is that you would think through, how do you want your life to show up differently within these walls of an entrepreneur life? And if that is date nights, if that is joining a collective like or ours, if that is having conversations with your husband to really figure out what that support looks like for him and for you, I know it will make the biggest difference in impacting the life that you really want to live. And from my perspective, that's called living big. So I wish you all the best, and write down in the comments what you have specifically done or what you plan to do to hold yourself accountable.